Everything evolves, right? Darwin pretty much built his whole theory on that idea, that life changes, adapts, and gets better over time. And it's not just in our world, even in fiction, characters and creatures are constantly evolving into new forms. Usually, if something doesn't adapt, it dies out. But what if I told you there's one creature that's been around since day one and have barely changed at all? One of cinema's most terrifying villains. Yep, I'm talking about the Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise. Those nightmare machines wrapped in biomechanical flesh. From their first appearance in Ridley Scott's 1979 Alien to the latest storyline, Xenomorph's body, instincts, and terrifying efficiency haven't changed at all. Of course, there have been shifts or variations in their physical form based on the host organism, but they never truly had the kind of deep transformation that can be called evolution. It's a mystery that seems to contradict the very principles of biology as we know them. Are they incapable of evolving? Or can it be by design that they already are the ultimate sign of perfection? Let's break it down. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Origins. Engineered, not evolved. Looking at the lack of evolution in xenomorphs and the terrifying similarity between them, it looks like it's a deliberate design. But by whom? It's clearly someone who understands that perfection is not achieved only by evolution. We know from the Alien prequels, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant that the xenomorph is the product of bioengineering by a species known as the Engineers. These ancient beings had such a mastery of genetics that they could shape life at will, almost as casually as a potter shapes clay. In these creation stories, the xenomorph, or at least its ancestors, were created in the laboratory, as the hybrids of several existing organisms combined with black liquid pathogens. The engineer's sole aim? To create a never-before-seen weapon. While natural evolution demands millennia of gradual changes under environmental pressure, the engineers simply skipped ahead of the process. They just fast-forwarded biology to give birth to something that was already in optimal condition. So the xenomorphs did not come from nature's natural selection, but by an intentional design, keeping in mind one singular function: to create organisms that can kill and eradicate anything that comes in their way. Actually, their lack of evolution really makes sense when we recognize the xenomorphs as mere weapons. We know evolution is driven by need. A predator becomes a faster version of themselves to catch prey. Prey gets faster to escape the predators, and so on. But what if a creature has no predators at all and is the apex predator itself? And no ordinary apex predator either. Xenomorphs are a notch above every other savage creature across cinema history. In such a case, there's no push to change or evolve without any challenges. This means that these beasts are born in apex form. Their biomechanical exoskeleton is bulletproof and built for insane survivability in virtually any environment. And when in danger, their acidic blood is enough to deter attackers and damage machinery. Imagine the power of their acid, using which they can easily burn through multiple decks of a spaceship or destroy any weapon unfortunate enough to wound them. On top of all this, they possess a horrifying reproductive cycle, which ensures that even a single egg can lead to an outbreak. Who can forget the parasitic facehugger implanting an embryo, which gestates super rapidly and emerges to kill the host and continue the cycle? But none of the offspring ever seem to evolve. This is actually the paradox of perfection. If something is already ideal, what more could it become? The xenomorph is an extreme example, not shaped just by science but by art. Every detail of their biology seems crafted not for survival alone, but for thriving and insane dominance. Pretty much in the same way a weapon is tuned for both precision and destructive power. Rapid adaptation versus true evolution. Because they are already fully optimized, their changes over time cannot be truly considered evolutionary. Of course, they can adapt to their immediate genetic environment, but not necessarily evolve on a species scale. The most striking example is the host DNA influence, which causes them to inherit traits from their hosts. Like in Alien 3, when the dog alien inherited digitigrade legs and greater speed from a canine host. Again, in the AVP films, the Predalien took the raw predatory traits from the xenomorph while the physical structure of the Yautja, resulting in his bulky size and brute force. Yet these changes are just superficial. Phenotypic changes to their form rather than any genetic progress. Once born, each variant of the xenomorph still thinks the same, hunts the same, and serves the same colony-driven social behavior. Their adaptation is generally only at the individual level, not due to evolution over the years. They can mutate just like viruses mutate, but they can carry forward the cultural, cognitive, or technical knowledge, which could lead to their leap from being just an animal to something greater. The hive mind. Limits of social and cognitive development. If you really want to understand a species, you've got to look at how they live together, and for xenomorphs, that social structure explains a lot. They run their lives like a hive. Think ants, bees, or termites. At the top, you've got the massive queen, whose main job is reproduction. Below her are the drones and other specialized types, all working with one goal: protect and expand the hive. Now here's the catch. In a system like this, there's basically no room for individual creativity. The hive itself acts like one big organism, and each xenomorph is just another cell inside of it. They don't innovate, they don't build, they just follow their instincts. Sure, they can be clever when they're hunting, like setting up ambushes or using the environment against their prey, but that's not really intelligence, that's just programming. You'll never see a xenomorph carving tools, building cities, or passing down knowledge. Their biology just doesn't allow for that. They're built to hunt, kill, and serve the hive, nothing more. Failed experiments. Hybrids and instability. Despite their inability to evolve, attempts have been made within the Alien storyline to push the xenomorphs beyond their base design. And history says this has almost always resulted in instability of the highest order. The Predalien, introduced in the 2004 Alien vs. Predator, was quite impressive in its increased physical menace, but it still showed no signs of higher intellect. In Alien Resurrection, human scientists created the strange hybrid newborn with genetic experiments, but it was emotionally unstable and even lacked the instinct to coordinate within its hive. These incidents might indicate another secret implanted in the xenomorph's genome by the engineers. Their genome might include a kind of lock or a limit beyond which any attempt to change it might suppress their basic functional perfection. The engineers may have deliberately built such constraints to ensure the xenomorph would remain consistent in their performance as the perfect weapon to kill. And if you look at this from the perspective of a weapons designer, it makes perfect sense to keep unwanted evolution out of the scope of the weapon, otherwise it might not behave as expected over time. Who wants to carry a machine gun that grows new parts randomly or shifts its caliber? The same is the case with the xenomorphs. As long as they're working as the perfect killing machines, there's neither a need for evolutionary change, nor is there a chance of it happening left by the engineers. Chilling theories and speculation. The genetic print left by the engineers on the xenomorphs leads to some dark theories and speculations. What might happen if they were somehow freed from this genetic stasis created by design by their creators? Some expanded lore definitely explores stories about super xenomorphs, who are either the result of rogue experiments or were born under exotic conditions. In the novel Alien: The Cold Forge, secret research wanted to weaponize them even further, but failed catastrophically. The Fire and Stone comics depicted monstrous variants exposed to black goo and alien environments, sometimes producing even deadlier forms. Yet these stories almost always end with the same climax, and the further you push them from their original blueprint, the more unpredictable and less efficient the xenomorphs become. It's almost as if the xenomorph species is operating on a razor's edge. Even the slightest deviation from the natural balance of their speed, strength, and intelligence makes them weaker. If we think about this in philosophical terms, this kind of immutable behavior is part of what makes the xenomorph so chilling. In a galaxy that's filled with multiple species that rise, fall, adapt, and reinvent themselves, somehow the xenomorphs remain the same shadow in the dark with their ferocious claws and a screaming rage and hunger. In our world, we're comfortable with the fact that time changes everything. All kinds of dangers can be overcome with new tools and new ideas, but not for xenomorphs. Their history tells us that some things never change, and therefore they can never be outgrown. Maybe that's why they're such powerful horror icons, because they possess not only physical danger, but also an existential horror of something perfectly hostile, with no scope of any change even within a millennia. It will always be what it is, and what it is will always want to kill you. Marvelous verdict. So back to our big question, why haven't the xenomorphs ever evolved? The short answer, they don't need to. Every part of their biology already works like a finished product. They've got a perfect life cycle, a hive structure that keeps them organized, and an apex predator's toolkit that makes them unstoppable. Evolution usually kicks in when a species has weaknesses to overcome, but the xenomorphs don't really have any gaps to fill. They can survive in almost any environment, overpower any prey, and even adapt their forms depending on the host they use. Instead of slowly changing over generations, they're designed to be efficient and consistent, like living weapons that never wear out. If you like this breakdown, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more such deep dives.